Hi guys, today's video is very live and very real. I'm going to show you the gardens here at Clover Hill, warts and all. Now before we head outside, let me thank my friends at Garden Design magazine for helping sponsor the tour. I used to write for the magazine, and although it was great back then, it's even better now. The summer issue has an amazing layout on hydrangeas that you will absolutely love. I think I need to plant more hydrangeas. So check it out. Click the link in the description box below to order and receive your bonus issue. I'm standing in the front yard now, and this is the house. It was built in 1826 by a Nathan Wild, but I call it Clover Hill because first, it's a very hilly property, and instead of proper grass, I basically have weeds that get mowed. And one of those weeds is clover. I have tons of it. And by the way, I did a thorough job of sweeping my front porch yesterday. And then of course last night, we had a colossal thunder and rainstorm. So everything is covered with mud again, but nothing I can do about that. I wanted to point out the trees here. This is a silverleaf maple, or maybe it's a sugar sap maple. I have to double check this. But I'll show you a picture. I have a sketch of this house from the mid-1800s. And you can see when these trees were really tiny. And of course, they are monstrous now. But it was very important back then to plant trees directly in front of your house because they would cool the house in the summer months. The house actually goes on and on and on. So this is the main section here. And this next part is the dining room wing. One day I'll give you a tour of the interior of the house. It's really something. And by the way, the house is on the National Register of Historic Places. So dining room wing, and this wing is the music room wing. And it's really hard to see now because years ago, someone planted a peachy hydrangea and an azalea right in front of the windows, and of course they grew and grew, and they are covering the windows. The peachy hydrangea I cut back every fall. I cut it almost down to the ground, and it zooms back up every year. I'd love to move it, but I'm not sure where to place it on the property. So I live with it. And let me show you something else that I really love about the front yard. It's this beech tree, and we were told by an arborist that it is one of the oldest beech trees in New York State. It's between 250 and 300 years old. I absolutely love it. When we bought this house, the property was exposed on 3 sides, and I wanted total privacy. So what I did was plant something called Thuja Green Giant. And I ordered these shrubs from Wayside Gardens in Ohio, and they arrived as these little tiny rooted cuttings. They were pitiful looking. I planted them anyway, and look what happened. They grew about 5 feet every year. I think they're about 20 feet tall. I'll stand in one of them so you can get the scale. Ta-da! And I'm 5 feet 8. Next up, the Boxwood garden. Follow me. Ta-da! Believe it or not, this entire area was asphalt when we bought the house. The previous owners had turned the north wing of the house, straight ahead, into 2 apartments, and they needed parking for their tenants, so blacktop everywhere. And after I lived here for 2 years, I really hated looking at the asphalt. So I finally hired someone to come remove it, and what a job that was. And then I bought just enough boxwood to create these geometric shapes. And then I took cuttings of the boxwood and inserted them between the existing shrubs, and all of the cuttings rooted. And I ended up with what I think is a very nice boxwood garden. And the fountains I ordered online from a company in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And unfortunately, I can't tell you the name of the company because I think they're out of business now. But they were not as expensive as you might think. And I don't have them running right now because, well, we had a great big storm last night and I didn't want things to flood. A friend of ours gave us these weeping crabapple trees. I think the variety is called Sargent, in 2008. And the attached card said, "For your wedding, I'm giving you crabs." And I really love them because they make these beautiful berries. Well, they make apples, crab apples, in the late summer months. And they start out green, like all apples, and then they turn a brilliant red. Oh, that reminds me, they're not Sargent crab apples, they're called red jade. And they make pink flowers that later turn into the crab apples. And the crab apples turn a bright crimson in the fall. And the birds absolutely love them, although I do save some for flower arrangements. Crabapple branches always look good in arrangements. In between the boxwood beds, I planted mostly David Austin roses. Unfortunately, they are all out of bloom now. But the clematis is coming into bloom, and I adore the big purple petals and the little white eyes. Let's head north out of the boxwood garden. I have some other gardens to show you. I did an underplanting of Pachysandra in this bed, and above the bed is a ginormous silverleaf maple. It's gotta be 200 years old. A friend of mine and I found some bluestone, and we used one of those little hand trucks. I don't know what they're called. And we brought the bluestone up this hill and made this very shallow staircase, which unfortunately, because of all the wind and rain last night, is now covered with debris, but I'll clean it up later. And I planted 3 white pines many years ago as a way to screen the swimming pool. And the trees were very small, but white pines grow very, very quickly. And then I cut an opening through the white pines so we would have a view of the vista beyond. So walk this way. Here are steps that lead to one of the gates to the swimming pool. And then I planted these arborvitae as a way to screen the swimming pool. These started out as 5-foot shrubs, and just like the Thuja green giant, I think they're like 18 to 20 feet now. Birds absolutely love arborvitae and other tall evergreens because they can find shelter in wintertime and terrific private nesting quarters in the spring. Here, I love statuary. This is the Venus de Milo. The lawn mowing guy happened to bump into her one day and knocked her over, and off went her head. I still have the head, but I think she looks kind of cool and, frankly, unique. Headless. And here are more Thuja green giants. Again, if you need a privacy screen, go with Thuja green giant. And here's the swimming pool. We put this in, I think 2005 or so. And Initially, and I'll show you a picture. When we put the pool in, we had a cement border and we put a black chain link fence right next to that border. So when we'd go for a swim, we always felt like we were in prison. So a few years later, I enlarged the garden and I removed the black chain link fence. And let me show you what I put around the garden. Do pass through. I planted hemlocks all around the swimming pool, and they were baby hemlocks, and they grew like mad over the next few years, and I really love them. And to give the pool a Grecian or Roman look, I added some statuary. So let's have a look. This is a scantily clad Miss Summer, and she is holding a sheaf of wheat. And over here we have Miss Autumn, and she is holding a bunch of grapes. And there's yet another statue hiding in the hemlocks. And it's a satyr. Satyrs were leches in Greek mythology. They chased after the nymphs. We don't actually heat the pool. It's located in full blazing sunlight, and the water is very warm. Okay. Onto the kitchen garden. This garden is very similar to the herb garden that we saw in a video a couple of weeks ago, in that it has raised beds. And the center beds are made of pine, and these beds are kind of falling apart now. I'll have to replace them probably next year. But in these beds, I've planted purple shades of zinnias. And to keep the zinnias from getting powdery mildew, that's one of the common ailments of plants here in the hot, humid Northeast. I spray them with a mixture of 1 part milk to 2 parts water, and so far it's working. And it's really fun to pass through the center of this garden and have these beautiful zinnias on either side. And just very quickly, I want to show you what's growing in some of the beds. This is lovage. And if you don't have it in your garden, please plant it. The leaves taste like celery on steroids. They have a really strong celery flavor. And they make flowers, flowering stalks that can shoot up 9 feet. And the flowers attract all kinds of beneficial insects. Another nice thing about lovage is that the stems are hollow, which means if you are drinking a Bloody Mary, you can use a lovage stem in which to sip the cocktail. Here I have some Cayuga beets. They're doing really well. And I love to roast them and serve them in a salad with goat cheese. And over here, I have a small planting of leeks. I use a lot of leeks in the autumn. And behind the leeks are bell peppers. And since bell peppers get top heavy when they're filled with fruit, I've tied them to stakes. In this bed, we have tomatoes, mostly heirloom varieties. And I made this 7-foot tall trellis for them, just out of 2x2x8 posts. I think the whole thing cost less than $20. And fortunately, you don't need any power tools to build this kind of trellis. You just angle the posts and hammer them in, and then you put another post on top and you tie it all together with jute twine. Really easy to do. Takes about 15 minutes to build this, and it will last a good 3 years. And I wanted to show you that I tie the tomatoes to the trellis with this neat stuff called green garden Velcro tape. And the tape is very soft and flexible, so there's no worry about the vines being damaged. And I have a lot of tomatoes in here, but we'll let them grow a bit. And we'll show you another tour of this garden in another video. Do you remember that I said I propagate lots of boxwood? Here's proof. When you have a lot of boxwood, you need to create yet more gardens that the boxwood can frame. So I made a pair of sweeping, sort of demi-lune shaped perennial beds here. And beyond the boxwood is daylily. This is a yellow, very fragrant yellow daylily. And in the background are peonies, which bloomed about a month ago. Okay, and here is the Serpentine garden. I built this garden because it's the steepest part of the property, and the lawn mowing guy rolled his tractor down here 3 times one summer. I nicknamed him Kamikaze Keith, and his boss had to come with a tow truck and a chain and pull him out. So I thought, I can't deal with this. So I decided to be creative, and I terraced this hill, and I made a very, very shallow staircase because I want to be able to ascend and descend the staircase when I'm 80 years old. And that's coming up. On this side is a hedge of dwarf lilac. And I'll try to show you a picture of what this looks like in the spring. And here I have another crabapple tree that is fruiting. This is the spectacular clethra. I think it's also called spice bush. And it makes these spires of pink that bumblebees absolutely love. So this shrub is just teeming with life in late August. And I put a cement bench here because it makes a great halfway point to sit and drink a glass of wine maybe. And this bed is filled with vinca minor that makes blue flowers. And here is a pair of witch hazel. This is a variety that flowers in the winter, no matter how cold and how much snow there is. It blooms like clockwork in late February, and the flowers are orange and the petals are kind of spidery looking and really fragrant. And I can't tell you how much fun it is to come out when there's 2 or 3 feet of snow on the ground and smell something blooming. So if you want a great wintertime plant, get witch hazel. So we had to stop filming outside because suddenly the sun came out and the humidity crept up, and both Andy, who's shooting this video, and I were basically melting outside. So I hope you enjoyed this garden tour, and I hope to be able to show you some of the other gardens here in future videos. If you'd like to see them, please be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And I'll see you next week with either another garden tour, maybe a house tour, or a delicious recipe. Bye.